Good morning, students. This lecture is specially meant for BA Part 1 English Literature students. And as we are going through As You Like It, so this lecture is in continuation to the earlier lecture. As we are already going through the main text, so today I shall be giving you the summary of Act 3, Scene 1 and 2, and also the analysis. And this particular reference, I have already given you the reference, that is, these are the Spark notes which are available online. Okay, so I'll just read out the summary. Now, Act 3, Scene 1. It is about Oliver, Oliver who is very much annoyed with his brother Orlando. So, it's mainly about that, and even Duke Frederick, who has given orders to find out Orlando. And already Orlando has escaped to the forest of Arden. Oliver, who has been unable to locate Orlando, reports to Duke Frederick at court. The Duke chastises him for his failure and commands him to find Orlando within a year's time or else forfeit the whole of his property. So Frederick turns Oliver out to search for Orlando and seizes his lands and worldly goods until Orlando is delivered to court. So now see, I will be giving you analysis also, but let's also go through the summary of scene 2. So you already know that Orlando has also escaped to the forest of Arden, as you have read. Orlando runs through the forest of Arden, mad with love, and he is in love with Rosalind. He hangs poems that he has composed in Rosalind's honor on every tree, hoping that passers-by will see her. To quote, virtue witnessed everywhere. That is, third act, scene 2, line number 8. Corin and Touchstone enter, but are too engrossed in a conversation about the relative merits of court and country life to pay attention to Orlando's verses. Corin argues that polite manners at court are of no consequence in the country. Touchstone asks him to provide evidence to support this thesis, and then challenges the shepherd's reasoning. Now see, Rosalind also enters. So she happens to read, because she is in a disguise of Ganymede, okay? And Celia is in disguise of Elenia the shepherdess, okay? So they will read all those poems which are hung by Orlando. Rosalind enters. She is disguised as Ganymede, as you have already read. She reads one of Orlando's poems, which compares her to a priceless jewel. Touchstone mocks the verse, claiming that he could easily churn out a comparable succession of rhymes. So, now Rosalind is eager to learn the identity of their author. Actually, till the time she doesn't know who has written this verse in honor of her. So, Rosalind is eager to learn the identity of their author. Celia teases her friend, hesitating to reveal the secret until Rosalind is nearly insane with anticipation. When Celia admits that Orlando has penned the poems, Rosalind can hardly believe it. Like a smitten schoolgirl, she asks a dozen questions about her intended lover, wanting to know everything from where he is to what he looks like. As you already know, she has fallen in love with Orlando when she had seen him in the wrestling match and he had won the wrestling match. As Celia does her best to answer these questions, despite Rosalind's incessant interruptions, Orlando and Jakes enter. Hiding the women eavesdrop on their conversation. Orlando and Jakes clearly do not care for one another's company and exchange a series of barbed insults. Jakes dislikes Orlando's sentimental love, declaring it the worst possible fault, while Orlando scoffs at Jake's melancholy. Eager to part, Jake walks off into the forest, leaving Orlando alone. Rosalind, as Rosalind decides to confront Orlando now. She approaches him as the young man Ganymede and speaks of a man that has been craving the name Rosalind on the trees. Now see, now here Rosalind, in disguise of Ganymede, already knows who is Orlando, but Orlando does not know the true identity of Rosalind because she is presented as Ganymede. So she approaches him as the young man Ganymede and speaks of a man that has been craving the name Rosalind on the trees. Orlando insists that he is the man, so love-shaken, and begs her for a remedy. This is Act 3, Scene 2, line number 332 to 333. She claims to recognize the symptoms of those who have fallen under the spell of true love and assures Orlando that he exhibits none of them. She says, too neatly dressed to be madly in love. She promises to cure him if he promises to woo Ganymede, as though Ganymede were Rosalind. As Ganymede, Rosalind vows to make the very idea of love unappealing to Orlando by acting the part of a fickle lover. Orlando is quite sure he is beyond cure, but Rosalind says, to quote Rosalind, I would cure you if you would but call me Rosalind and come every day to my court and woo me, unquote. With all his heart, Orlando agrees. So see here, Rosalind takes, she enjoys her plan and she is very witty. So she just takes advantage of the situation. That is what. Now, if we go for the analysis, now this is a beautiful analysis of Act 3, Scene 1 and 2. In Act 3, as the play moves from Duke Frederick's court into the forest of Arden, Shakespeare explores more fully the complexities of his major themes, the merits of country versus city life, and the delights and dismays of romantic love. The conversation between Touchstone and Corin in Act 3, Scene 2, provides interesting insight into the matter of city versus country living. Now, Touchstones, that is Act 3, Scene 2, line number 61, Corin's declaration that those that are good manners at the court are as ridiculous in the country as the behavior of the country is most mockable at the court, to unquote, is not only sensible, it is also in keeping with the guiding philosophy of the play, that the world is full of contradictions that do not cancel one another out but exist side by side. Corin's willingness to rest then is not so much an admission of defeat as a recognition that court and country, along with the style and the substance that they respectively present, much coexist. As the argument between Touchstone and Corin plays out, we witness the repercussions of Orlando's lovesickness. When characters fall in love in As You Like It, they invariably fall hard and fast, abandoning all reason in their desperate attempts to win the object of desire. Orlando is no exception because he is madly in love with Rosalind, as the silly and unskilled poems he tacks on the trees make clear. Here, Orlando's behavior accords with the Petrarchian model of romantic love. Petrarch is a 14th century Italian poet whose lyrics elevate the woman he loves to an unattainable, semi-divine status. Orlando's behavior leads him to great folly and prompts Jake's sore declaration to quote Jakes, the worst fault you have is to be in love, to unquote. That is Act 3, Scene 2, line number 258. But sore though it is, the sentiment is not Orlando's alone. As Rosalind reads Orlando's verses, she comments on their poor composition. But this shortcoming does not stop her from enjoying them. So, it is much to the play's credit that it conceives of such irrational devotion as both a virtue and a vice. It is also the greatest testament of the depth of Rosalind's character, only she is capacious and generous enough to welcome and thrive on such contradictions. So, students, from Act 1 till Act 3. So, you have seen Rosalind as a good sister, as a loyal daughter, as a loyal friend, as a loyal beloved. So, you have to form her character depending on these, dialogues you have met. So, tomorrow I will be continuing with your fourth act and the relationship which exists between Orlando and Rosalind, and even her relationship with her father. That will be discussed in the next lecture. Thank you, students. Thank you for your patience. For today, we shall continue tomorrow. Thank you.